Hi and welcome. We're about to kick it off. Hi, welcome everyone. Today's webinar is Inside Atlassian's CAB program, Creating Meaningful Customer-Centric Experiences. There's my mouse. So a couple of points on housekeeping. We are recording the webinar. We'll send it to you afterwards. Type in all your questions in the Q&A box and we'll get to them at the end. Also, definitely engage in the chat. Oh, one point about the chat seems like it's on chat to hosts and panelists. So make sure you select everyone so everyone can see your messages. So we're going to do a quick poll and Amy's going to present her topic and sharing about the Atlassian CAB program. At the end, we'll do a Q&A and CAB resources. Amy's about to introduce herself, so I'm not going to introduce her yet. Quick points about Ignite. We're dedicated solely to creating, managing, and facilitating customer advisory boards and partner advisory boards. We've completed over 300 engagements across the globe, and we've developed many of the industry best practices that leading B2B companies use in their CAB programs. So we always like to start with a poll. Let me launch the poll. So what is the current status of your advisory board program, be it customer advisory board or partner advisory board? Don't have a program, haven't started, trying to launch, existing program on hold, your current program is in progress, or you're expanding your program and adding new boards. We'll give it another 10 seconds or so. Yeah, and someone's asking, hey, Chris, excited to be here. Where is everyone from? Please type in the chat. And with that, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So a majority of you, 45%, have the program in progress. And several of you are expanding programs, and a smaller portion of you don't have the program yet or are trying to launch. So welcome. You're going to get a lot of great insights from Amy. So you're in the right place. So now I'm going to stop the share and kick it over to Amy.
All right, awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Let me know when, can you guys see my screen? What screens are you seeing?
See your slides, you just need to go into presentation mode.
Perfect. Okay, great. We're in the right spot now. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm really, really excited to be here. As Tatiana mentioned, my name is Amy Sulpizio, and I am the Customer Advisory Board Program Lead at Atlassian. I actually had the privilege of being able to kind of give a very similar presentation to Ignite's CAB.org conference back in October. So if there are any familiar faces who I got to engage with then, I'm excited to see you again. But we have made some small tweaks to the program since October, so we'll see if you can catch them. But really excited to be here and share a little bit, not only about our customer advisory board journey, but a little bit about Atlassian as well, and how we use our program to do things a little bit differently to create meaningful customer experiences the Atlassian way. And so I know that this session is being run as a webinar, but to the fullest effect that we can possible, I'd love to make this more of a two-way dialogue if we can. So as Tatiana mentioned, please go ahead and put your questions, your comments, your insights and experiences in the chat or in the Q&A function. I will pause as we go through a couple of slides to take any immediate questions that you all have, and then we will have ample time for Q&A at the end. All right, and so without further ado, let's get into it. So a quick background on who I am. I am a proud Penn State Nittany Lion, and after about 7 years of moving in different locations across the US, I am finally back home in my home state of Pennsylvania, and I'm located in the Philly area. So if anybody's from Philly, please let me know. In my free time, I love traveling, I love skiing, watching sports, big New York sports fan, baking, and then also spending time with my family and my friends. And then on the professional front, I started my career at Dell Technologies in supply chain before transitioning to the world of high-touch customer engagements. And then after Dell, I also had a stint at Accenture before I joined the Atlassian team in March of 2022, which is kind of crazy to think that I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary here, but a lot has changed in those 3 years, including my remit. So I've gone from running one CAB program to managing the 2 that we currently have in existence, to now running the entire CAB program and strategizing for its future growth. So I know you're all here to talk about CAB today, but one of the things that I wanted to do before I dove into CAB was give you a brief overview of Atlassian's mission, because that's kind of the foundation and will ground the rest of our conversation. And so Atlassian's mission is to really unleash the potential of every team. And our bread and butter has always been about combining synchronous and asynchronous working methodologies to improve collaboration and really push work forward across highly distributed teams. And so one of the things that we're really proud of at Atlassian is how we combine our products and our practices together and really allow our customers to use both of those in tandem to solve their toughest challenges and truly transform the way that they work. And so at Atlassian, everything that we do, both for our customers and for our internal teammates as well, aligns to the 5 core values that you see on this slide. And as I was thinking about our values, I was thinking about how so many other organizations also have core values. And so you're probably like, Amy, I don't really understand what the point of this is. However, our values at Atlassian are truly viewed as something that we need to live and breathe every single day. And it's not just marketing fluff that should be living on our corporate website. And so since I've joined Atlassian about 3 years ago, almost to the day, I cannot recall one single day where I haven't seen a team member reference at least one of these values to help push our work forward. That just kind of speaks to the testament of these values being our North Star at Atlassian, and the fact that we really use these every day to drive all of the decisions that we make in all of the actions that we take, including how our CAB program started, and then also now how it's evolving. And so over time, Atlassian's been around for about 22, 23 years or so. Our values have never changed over that time period. But what has changed is our business focus. So beginning in 2020, that focus shifted from one of product-led growth to one of enterprise excellence. And so as we kicked off our enterprise journey, large organizations were coming to us, and they were also sharing the collaboration, teamwork, and work visibility challenges that they were having. And back in 2020, right, it was COVID. So COVID really helped to amplify these challenges. And so at that point, our co-founders and co-CEOs at the time saw an opportunity to stand up a CAB program, not only to get closer to our customers, but to really make sure that we had an existing channel where we could discuss macroeconomic conditions, industry trends, and also have a forum where customers could share their feedback with us around our products and solutions and how we could make sure that we were leveling them up in an enterprise-ready way so we could help address their challenges. And so in 2021, we officially launched our CAB program, the Executive and the Enterprise CAB, and I will dive into the specifics of those in just a couple of minutes. And so 2021, when we fully launched, we really wanted to make sure that we had membership dialed up across both of the boards and that we had our meeting cadence locked in for the entire year. And then in 2022, those COVID restrictions started to soften, and we had the opportunity to host our first in-person CAB programming. So this was a hybrid executive CAB meeting and an in-person networking reception for our enterprise CAB members. And this was all hosted at our Team 22 conference in Las Vegas. And so at the end of 2022, we also graduated our first cohort of executive CAB members. They serve a 2-year tenure, so 2021 to 2022, there's their 2 years. So we officially graduated them at the end of the calendar year, and that really jump-started our executive CAB alumni efforts. And then 2023, our CAB program's been in existence for about 2 years. It's time to do some benchmarking. So we started looking at external research, conducting member surveys, and looking at some internal metrics. And this really allowed us to find opportunities to drive those programmatic improvements that would increase engagement in the meeting with the CAB members, as well as increase the value that everybody was getting as a result of attending those meetings and participating. And so in 2024, we actually furthered those efforts that we started in 2023, and we introduced an entire CAB strategy refresh, or what we called at Atlassian a CAB 2.0. And this was really important because it allowed us to focus on securing executive sponsorship for the programs, fine-tuning our membership criteria, and updating our meeting cadences based on what we had heard from members. And so you'll see 2024 has a plus right next to it. That's because this is really kind of segueing into 2025. So the work that we're doing this year is now taking our new CAB strategy and fully executing it. And already about 3 months into the year, we're starting to see the benefits of the changes that we have implemented. So that's a little bit about our journey, but what does our CAB program officially look like today? It does look like this. So today we have 2 boards as part of our CAB portfolio. It's the Executive CAB and our Enterprise CAB. And both of these programs are industry and product and solution agnostic, but there are some key differences between the two, so we can jump into those now. So we're going to start on the left-hand side with the Executive CAB program. So our Executive CAB program is sponsored by Atlassian's Chief Revenue Officer and President, and they represent Atlassian's go-to-market and product development arms of our organization. And so the Executive CAB program sits more at that 30,000-foot view. You're talking about things around Atlassian's corporate strategy and vision, industry trends from across all of the different industries that are represented as part of the board, and then our longer-term product and solution strategies. And so, as I mentioned in 2024, we spent a lot of time updating that CAB strategy. So beginning this year in 2025, we have moved from kind of a hybrid model where we had virtual and in-person engagements to now hosting 2 in-person meetings per year. The Executive CAB's membership is comprised primarily of senior vice presidents and above, and their typical remit of a board member is in the IT, application development, or cloud infrastructure spaces. And at any given time, we have approximately 20 to 25 members as part of the program. And one of the other things that we did as part of the CAB 2.0 strategy refresh is that we actually ended up adopting a rolling membership approach. And this was going to allow us to ensure that the board was consistently full and diverse, as opposed to some of the attendance or exec changeover items that we may experience if we had more of that cohort model. So if we switch gears to the right-hand side, the Enterprise CAB is sponsored by our head of product for Enterprise. So if you remember just a couple of minutes ago, I was talking about how in 2020, our business focus shifted from product-led growth to enterprise excellence. And so it makes sense that for the Enterprise CAB, we would have our head of product for Enterprise as our executive sponsor. However, a key difference between the Executive and Enterprise CABs is that the Enterprise CAB kind of sits more at that 10,000-foot view. And so a lot of the meeting topics double click into our roadmaps, our product and solution strategies for closer to the near term, maybe a year or 2, and then use cases that customers have with either specific features or functionality requests that these customers expect in an enterprise level solution. And so our Enterprise CAB does meet 4 times per year virtually, and we do aim to host 1 in-person connect in each region per year. Because it's mostly a virtual program, having that opportunity to have face-to-face time, not only with other members that are in their region, but with members as part of the Atlassian team, it's a really big boost to have that in-person connection. So membership for Enterprise CAB typically sits at more of that decision maker or influencer level, or what you may think of as a director level. And it's actually comprised of about 100 people, which may be a little bit surprising to you to see a number that large. However, quarter over quarter through our virtual meetings, we typically only engage with about 50 to 60% of them relatively regularly. And we also host our virtual meetings with 2 sessions to accommodate our global audience. So discussion leaders and the content is the same between the 2 sessions. However, it allows for some flexibility in which meeting or session the audience wants to attend. And so we typically end up seeing between any given session about 25 to 30 attending. So it feels like more of a true CAB program, despite the fact that the large number of 100 can seem a little bit daunting. All right, so I'm going to pause real quick, and Tatiana, I'm going to see if there are any questions that came through over the first couple of slides that I covered on Atlassian's CAB journey and what our portfolio looks like.
Yeah, there's one question about what does the rolling membership look like logistically? How does your company manage that participation? And then you can,
Yeah,
so far that's
yeah,
the
that's a great question. So it's right now we try to use our tools as much as possible, and more on that in the back half of this presentation. But what we do is we are very prescriptive about onboarding. And so when we onboard someone, they get the invitation, they get the welcome email. We record when that person formally joined the board, and that's when their 2-year tenure begins. And so theoretically, we want all of our board members to serve their full 2 years. However, we know that there are changes that happen at the executive level all the time. Maybe someone's retiring, or they're moving to another company, or they're moving to another point in the organization where, hey, they're not responsible for Atlassian anymore and making those decisions. And so when that's the case, regardless of if they finish their tenure or they need to depart early, we end up making note of when they depart and how many seats are left as part of the board. So between 20 and 25 is our sweet spot. If we find that we have 18, 19 people as part of the board, we're going out into the sales organization and we're asking customers for some nominations of folks that they believe would be a really good fit for the program and afford them with the opportunity to join the board for a 2-year tenure. So we do keep a close eye on that, and then we just kind of manage just based on circumstance that the members are going through.
So we're getting a lot more questions. Someone asked,
Okay,
go back to the last slide for a second, and then
absolutely.
I'll ask you to move forward, and all your questions are great, and we'll get to them at the end.
Did you want me to go back to the slide for any other last questions?
Well, let's just give it like 2 more seconds.
Okay, sure.
Really, while you were answering, you would have been on this slide, but it's okay. Just now go ahead and move forward.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, great. So now we'll jump into some of the things that we're doing at Atlassian that make our CAB program a little bit more unique from some others. So the first thing is that our co-founder and CEO, Mike Cannon-Brookes, is involved. And so as I was talking about the CAB strategy refresh, one of the things that we really wanted to hone in on was executive sponsorship for the program. And so when we were looking for a sponsor specifically for our executive CAB program, we knew that if we wanted to capture the time and attention of our executive level customers, that we also needed to match that commitment from our own executives. And so to get Mike and his leadership team on board, we focused on sharing 3 primary things. The first was that membership is comprised of our top ARR customers who are truly champions of the Atlassian brand. The second thing was that there's a ton of value that the CAB program can provide in terms of getting that feedback and actioning it to move our business initiatives forward. And then the third thing was how we could use outputs from the CAB meetings to show up in our board of directors meetings or our quarterly earnings calls to really represent that voice of the customer. And so if you attended the session back in October, Mike was our executive sponsor. We have since onboarded our chief revenue officer. So Mike has passed the reins of executive sponsorship to our chief revenue officer, and he will now represent our go-to-market side. However, Mike does still attend the CAB meetings so long as it works with his schedule. And he is provided with executive summaries that come out of every single one of them, and he does read them. And so one of the biggest successes that we had with Mike's involvement most recently was that we had a total change in our selling philosophy for a product that was going to originally end up being sold as cloud only. And so based on member feedback during the meeting, we ended up understanding that there was an incredible appetite for us to explore what a data center connector could look like. So additional customers outside of just cloud customers would be able to take advantage of the innovation that we were going to be providing. And so Mike ended up really leaning into understanding this feedback and taking action accordingly based on it. And as a result of that feedback, we ended up making a formal announcement in October at our Team 24 Europe event that we were going to move forward with investment in this data center connector. So not only were CAB members thrilled because they had direct influence over what this decision was going to be, but also so many other customers who are not yet able to take advantage of our cloud offerings. They were thrilled as well because they were going to be able to, really take advantage of this moving forward. So it's quite exciting. Another unique thing about having Mike involved is that this is how he shows up to meetings. Probably a little unconventional from how you all run your CAB programs, but he is in a pair of jeans, and I'm not sure if you can see with the head in the way, but he's also in a pair of Nike Dunks. And so we actually encourage all of our members to show up in more of a casual dress code. Not only does this give, our customers a little bit more of a view into the Atlassian culture, but it also creates more of a welcoming environment and allows us to focus on the things that truly matter when we're with these customers, which is the meeting discussions. So the second thing that we do is that we facilitate all of our CAB meetings internally. And so I, as the program manager, have a seat at the table to build relationships with each of the members, to capture their feedback and insights firsthand and really kind of internalize those and use them to help propel and craft future meeting agendas. And then I also use the relationships and the insights that I capture from them to evolve the program further based on what members say that they need in a CAB program. The third thing that we do is we incorporate fun activities. So at Atlassian, every employee participates in ITG events, or what we call intentional togetherness. And these are events that happen mainly in Atlassian offices throughout the year to bring together distributed teams to help, increase and create that sense of community. And more often than not, these ITG events also have a foundation activity associated with them. And so one of the things that we wanted to do through the CAB program was really make our CAB members feel like an extension of the Atlassian team. And so when we have an opportunity to gather in person, we like to incorporate these activities to help strengthen the relationships, not only between members and the Atlassian team, but also the members themselves. And that in turn helps make our CAB meeting discussions more fruitful because everybody has a relationship with one another and they're comfortable with speaking their mind freely in the meeting room. And so I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of things that we've done as part of our ITG and foundation activities with our CAB members. So these are some examples from the past 3 team events where we've hosted in-person CAB programming. And so we have created kits for a children's hospital in Las Vegas. We've put together solar buddy lights to help benefit those either in the healthcare industry or give to those who have limited access to electricity. And then we've also broken the CAB members into teams to complete a scavenger hunt across a massive grocery store exhibit. And this was just a fun way for members to kind of be together in smaller groups to build community with each other while also having some friendly competition. So that Mega Mart as part of Meow Wolf, there's a couple of locations across the US. If you're looking at doing something a little bit different for your members that's hands-on and fun, highly recommend checking that out. The fourth thing is that we have hosted our in-person CAB meetings as hybrid meetings. And so we fundamentally believe that hybrid meetings provide an equal opportunity for all of the CAB members to attend and contribute to the meeting discussion, regardless of if they are able to travel on site or not. And so I did want to spend some time talking a little bit more about this specifically, because I know hybrid meetings are a big sticking point for a lot of people. And I think Atlassian's done a really nice job of cracking the code to make this possible for our CAB members. And so on the left-hand side, you can see a blueprint that we designed for how we would set up the hybrid meeting room. And on the right-hand side, you can see how we really transition that into a real-life experience for our members. And so we took advantage of setting the room in a U shape. And so similar to how most CAB programs are run, all members and discussion leaders sat around the U and they remained seated for the entire meeting, unless we were getting up, doing a breakout session or whatnot, but really to kind of continue to hone in on the fact that no one voice is more powerful than the other. What you can see is that we have 3 monitors in the middle of that U. You can kind of only see it a little bit more, just the one side in the live picture, but we had one on each side. So all of the folks that were sitting around the U could see the content and the other members in the room with no obstruction to their view. And then at the far end of the U, we ended up having a monitor, and then we had 2 cameras on either side of this. And so on the monitor, we ended up being able to pipe in the Zoom participants' faces. So everybody who was sitting in the room could look at the monitor and they could see the virtual participants and then the cameras on either side. And one of the cool things about the technology that these cameras has is that it's able to pick up who was speaking in the room. And so when someone was speaking in the room, the camera would then pan around the room to zero in on that person speaking. And so that's more so what the virtual participant would see on the other end. And it created a little bit more of an intimate conversation with folks as opposed to just seeing the entire meeting room and people sitting there. It felt like it was a little bit more face to face. And then the last thing that we really did to kind of make sure that this was a good experience and everybody could hear everybody is that we placed microphones at all of the meeting tables. So we had 1 per 2 people, so nobody had to stretch too far. And this really allowed us to make sure that the folks that were attending virtually could hear everybody in the meeting room clearly and vice versa. So we also had some big speakers in the room as well. So anybody who was speaking virtually to the group that was in person in the room, we could hear them clearly as well. And microphones are a really great tip to take advantage of, especially if you're in a larger room like we were in this instance. The acoustics in the room can be a little crummy sometimes. And so making sure that everybody can hear clearly was a big priority for us and well worth the AV spend. And so we know that hybrid meetings are really, really challenging. And so we do ask our members for feedback after every meeting, not just around the content that was discussed or the value that they received from the meeting, but what was your meeting experience like too? Because we know that it's really important to make sure that everybody feels like they're included and that they have a voice. And so we take their feedback from all of the meeting surveys. And we really make sure that we are channeling that into future improvements that we can make to improve the experience.
Quick question
Yeah.
on the meeting room is that the Wynn Las Vegas looks similar to our meeting? And do you record the meetings? And if you would be open to sharing your budget for a hybrid meeting like this, would you?
Yeah, sure.
Those are
So
3 questions.
no, 3 questions in one. I love it. So it's not the Wynn in Las Vegas, it's the Venetian, but you were really, really close. So I'm pretty impressed with that. In terms of the meetings being recorded, they were recorded for executive CAB, and we previously did that only for internal use after the meeting to make sure that we captured all of the notes and action items. However, we did end up getting approval from all of the members to share that recording externally, like with the group afterwards. So we did lock it down. It was password protected, and it was a specific link that only those who had access to would be able to enter that password and gain access to it. But we did end up sharing it with folks who weren't able to attend as well, so they could get the full recording and the executive summary afterwards. And yes, if you're interested in discussing the budget for what we were able to do for the hybrid meeting, I'd be happy to connect with you.
Okay, cool. Just one, I know I said we do this at the end, but just
That's okay.
What percentage of members are remote, and do you have any insight on their scores, feedback scores, experience versus you?
Yeah, we do. So I would say I think this might have been from last year's meeting. So we had 7 members that were in attendance in person, and we had 3 that joined virtually. So what we've been seeing over the last couple of years, especially with COVID restrictions softening over even the last 2 more or so, is that a lot of executives are really looking forward to traveling again and being together in person for these meetings. They find it to be a lot more beneficial to be in the same room as their peers, as well as the Atlassian team. And then we've also gotten feedback that members really like to, be collaborative during the meeting. So getting up, moving around, doing a whiteboard exercise or, a sticky note exercise, whatever it may be, they really enjoy that. However, it is a fun thing to solve for how we can do an in-person exercise and also replicate that to be available for the virtual participants as well. So you kind of have to be a little bit more creative in terms of the technology that you have available and making sure that they are still able to participate even if they are not in the room. Tatiana, did I get the whole question?
Yeah, just keep going, and there's lots more questions for the
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so I kind of already alluded to this a little bit, but the fifth thing that we do a little bit differently is that we use our own tools a lot during meetings. So as I said, these members have shared their feedback before that they really like to be hands-on in the meeting and really feel like they are helping to build and shape the future of Atlassian. And so we use our tools as an interactive opportunity for members to share their perspectives, as well as for them to get their hands dirty with our products, regardless of if they've used that specific piece of software before, or this is the first time they're getting their hands on it. It's a really great opportunity for them to get more familiar with the Atlassian stack. And so there's been a couple of ways that we've done this, and I'm going to highlight 3 that have worked really well for us. And so we use Confluence pages. And if you're not sure what a Confluence page is, it's a way better version of a Wikipedia page. But one person basically makes the page, and then based on your permission structure, everybody else has the opportunity to go in and edit, comment, like, whatever it may be. They have the flexibility to add their perspective. And so we have a capability within Atlassian that allows us to create an external site or a shared Confluence space where all of these pages can be uploaded. And the Atlassian team has the opportunity to collaborate with members, everything from sharing updates to posting questions to peers. And then that kind of takes me into my next piece, which is Confluence whiteboards. And so we also host a Confluence whiteboard as part of that shared space. And so a Confluence whiteboard is exactly what you think it is. It's a brainstorming tool. And so this allows members to jot their thoughts down during the meetings and then kind of have a broader conversation about their feedback with the rest of the group. And then the great thing about the Confluence whiteboards is it's evergreen. So after the meeting ends, we have the opportunity to go in and restructure that feedback, bucket it into different themes, and organize it in a way that's going to make sense for our members to then receive after the meeting as a takeaway to show that we are listening to their feedback. And then the last one I wanted to highlight was Loom. And if you haven't heard about what Loom is an async video tool that allows you to connect with your team members in a little bit more of a face-to-face format while it's still not a live synchronous meeting. And so a great use case for Loom was for an executive CAB meeting that we had last year. We had a customer that was set to share their AI journey during a virtual meeting. And so about a week before, the customer ended up emailing me and said, hey, I have a conflict. I'm not going to be able to attend anymore. But as you think about planning your own CAB meetings, right, a week before, you're all buttoned up, you're doing your final dry runs, all of the comms have gone out to the other members about the agenda. And so you kind of feel stuck because you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Loom came to the rescue for us here. And so this was really a great opportunity for us to make sure that the customers still had the chance to share their perspective. And so we asked them to record a Loom of the content that they were originally going to share live during the meeting. And so instead of them sharing it live, we were able to just play the Loom recording during the meeting so the other members could still hear their journey and get the gist of what they were going through as an organization. And then we were able to use that to then propel us into more of that peer-to-peer discussion and sharing. And so another great thing about Loom is that we were able to share that video out with the members as well. And so they were able to go and log into the Loom. With Loom, you can put comments on there, you can do reactions, you can link to other things. And it's a really great way to stay connected to folks and continue to share knowledge back and forth without being on the phone with somebody. And so that CAB member graciously allowed us to share that out and included her contact information as well. So any of the members could go back and watch it and then reach out to them with any further questions or more information that they wanted to share. And the last thing that we do is we give our CAB members graduation gifts. And so when a member has reached the end of their 2-year tenure, we want to thank them accordingly for their time and their commitment to not only Atlassian, but more specifically our CAB program. And so what better way to do that than with personalized bobbleheads? This is another kind of fun thing that we do at Atlassian. So when a team member reaches their 10-year anniversary, they are gifted a personalized bobblehead as a thank you for all of the contributions that they've made to the organization over the years. And it's been just a fun tradition that everybody really looks forward to when they hit that 10-year milestone mark. And this was something that we knew that we wanted to incorporate into our CAB programming, again, as another step to make sure that our CAB members felt appreciated and truly treated as an extension of the Atlassian team. And so our focus on making our CAB program unique, inviting, and like a fun way to engage with the Atlassian team while still driving business results forward, both for their organization and for ours, it's resulted in an 87% CSAT score across the entire CAB program. We've received a ton of praise from members about Atlassian's program as well. But one thing that I wanted to call out was a member who said, "This has been the best customer advisory board experience I've been a part of. I'm on another board as well, and it doesn't compare." Pretty powerful when your customers are saying that. And then we've also had more than 5 executive CAB members who have requested to extend their tenure by an additional year because they found a lot of value being part of the board. And most recently, from October till now, we've had one of our CAB members also end up making the switch and joining the Atlassian team because he built the relationships with our leadership team and saw the vision and where we were going as an organization and wanted to be a part of the fun even more. So while we're really proud of what we have built over the last 4.5 years or so, we know that there's constant room for improvement. And so we are now starting to think about the future of Atlassian's CAB program. And we're really kind of focusing on 3 core areas. And the first is enhancing the feedback loop with our customers and making sure that there are timely updates going back to them. Looking at the ROI of the CAB program, which kind of feeds directly into the third point, which is growing the CAB program and understanding the appetite for solution-specific councils or industry-specific councils in the future. And so that's where our head is at. It's a little bit about our journey. I'd love to now open it up to all of the other questions that have come in. And if I'm also just as interested in learning about each of your CAB programs, and I hope that this was helpful today. So I'd love to stay connected with each of you and make sure that we're continuing to share best practices and evolving our programs. And
Awesome. There are tons of questions.
oh, great.
I did mention to you how on our last webinar, a lot of people talked about leveraging the CAB for customer advocacy. And
Yeah.
Megan did ask, are your CAB customers expected to participate in other activities, such as serving on as a client reference, providing a case study or testimonial, et cetera? And
Yeah,
can you speak a little bit in general to customer advocacy in CAB?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always encouraged, but it's never mandated because we know that these executives are incredibly busy. We want to be very mindful about how we are using their time. And so what we do is at the end of every meeting, we do have a meeting survey. And what's asked on the meeting survey is not just about the meeting itself, but how much more involved with Atlassian do you want to be? And so we give them the opportunity to opt in if they would like to be a customer, like a one-to-one customer reference, if they'd be interested in speaking at an Atlassian event or on a panel, if they would be interested in speaking at internal events too. So the Atlassian team has more opportunities to get to hear from customers firsthand. We kind of really leave it more as ball in their court. However, what we will say is that there's a lot of natural opportunity for our CAB members to get involved with things like early access programs or beta programs. And so we have those opportunities that we surface during meetings as well. And they kind of are a consistent voice in some of the engagements that we have with our product teams or our product marketing teams to continually provide that feedback and help shape, you know, a little bit more of the future of that specific product offering moving forward. So it's not always public, it can be internal sometimes as well, but we do like to try to give them that flexibility and surface that multiple times throughout the year. The other thing I will say is that with our team conference that we have every year in the springtime, we do also go through a call for speakers process at the moment. And so if we give our CAB members an opportunity to submit a talk, we do also raise that internally to ask for prioritization from the Atlassian team to bring our CAB members forward, because they have invested so much time with us, and each of them do have such a unique story to tell about the power of our two companies working together.
Awesome, thank you. Several people asked about, like Pedro asked, is CAB management your full-time role? Shelley asked a question about the same thing, that, you know, she's doing a million things and it's hard to get this absolutely right. And Emily asked, related, what team do you sit on? Customer marketing is a separate function from product marketing at our company. And then she also asked, you know, what does your partnership look like with other teams to make CAB successful?
Yeah. Okay. This is a great series of questions. So keep me honest if I'm answering all parts of it. Let me start with where our team sits in the organization. So we have recently onboarded in the last 6 months another program manager to help kind of level set the load that the CAB program requires. So yes, this is my full-time job. We do have our 2 boards that we are currently managing, but we are also doing some exploration, as I mentioned, around the solution-specific CABs too. So that obviously, the more CABs you have, the more bandwidth that it's typically going to take up. And so that is a big primary focus of ours, but we do have 2 full-time people on the CAB program. We do also sit as part of the sales organization, which is probably a little unique compared to others. This is something we previously sat in our customer success organization. The customer success and the sales organization merged a couple of years ago, and we found ourselves landing in the sales org. And it has been such a blessing to be in the sales org, because we have direct connection to the account teams that we need to really engage with and have strong relationships with, to notify them of not just our CAB program, but our other high-touch customer engagement programs, such as briefings or executive sponsorship as well, and really make sure that we are going with the account team along their customer journey and positioning these different types of high-touch customer engagement programs at the right time in that customer's journey. So we've really enjoyed that partnership that we have with sales. However, they are not our only partner. We do work with product, we work with product marketing, we work with our executive leadership team, we work with the engineering team as well. We do craft all of our agendas based on what CAB members are interested in discussing. And so we really use that as our lever to pull the right stakeholders in from across the business to make sure that we are building those agendas with exactly what customers are interested in talking about, and then also marrying that with what's super top of mind for our Atlassian team to make sure that the conversation is mutually beneficial and that customers can provide their input, but we're also seeking some of those clear insights that we need to move things forward internally.
Great. Part of Emily's question was also about closing the feedback loops following CAB meetings. And do you have any tips on that with your product teams and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And that's something that we're spending a lot more time and focus on this year, because it's something where a lot of folks at the end of a CAB meeting, right, they'll be like, yeah, that was great. We got some really good feedback. And then they kind of feel like it's over and done at that point. And that's a mind shift that we are trying to drive across Atlassian right now, is that when the meeting is over and you close out of the Zoom or you leave the meeting room physically, it's not over. It's actually, the work is really just beginning. And so making sure that we are incorporating debrief calls after the meetings as well, to make sure that all of the action items are cared for and that there's a clear plan of attack in place to make sure that we are truly acting on that feedback and we are going back to our members in, a respectful amount of time to share the progress that we've made. And so previously we've done it where with our executive CAB, because we're meeting twice a year now, we would say, hey, welcome. This is what we covered last time, and this is what we've done about it to this point. and we would kind of follow that cadence. We're also now looking at using one of our own tools, again, Jira, to track those action items coming out of the meetings. So putting those into Jira, tagging the right stakeholders who are owning it, and doing all of the tracking through Jira so we can make sure that we're getting those timely updates back out to members, whether it's an in-person meeting where we're going to connect with them and we need to provide them an update, or, hey, we have a meeting coming up, but we wanted to share some progress with you that we've made since we last connected. So we're toying with some different ways that's going to make this a little bit more of a full-fledged process for us and make sure that we're holding the right folks accountable internally.
Definitely. I mean, what happens after the meeting is almost more important or as important as the actual meeting. So thank you for that. We had many recruitment type questions. So let me scroll back.
And if it's helpful, I can stop sharing my screen as well, and everybody can just see
Yeah.
my face more so.
So these are all various recruitment questions. Do you partner with the members from the same orgs for both the CABs, like inviting different roles from same company?
We do. It's not a requirement by any means, but we do find that a lot of folks at the executive level will say, like, hey, we have an opportunity for them to engage in something after the meeting or to provide additional feedback. They may say, hey, I don't have enough time for that, but someone on my, and so they might flag that as an opportunity for someone more at that like head of or director level to be involved with our enterprise CAB program as well, and make sure that they have the opportunity to weigh in with their feedback. The other thing is that we do have a lot of one-to-one follow-ups after our meetings too. And so it may not always be with the direct CAB member itself, but it will be with, maybe them and someone else on their team, or they may delegate that as well. And so we don't just make it as an opportunity just to join a CAB meeting because maybe they're only focused on also one specific area and not across the entire Atlassian stack. It's just kind of a little situational as well. But we do have a decent amount of overlap, but it's not 100% for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at my other screen, so
You're fine. I trust you.
How large are your customers that attend the CAB? Do you look at spend per customer or how big they are? How do you think about in the realm of recruiting the members?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I think a lot of organizations look at what the historical spend has been with an organization and do they have enough usage of your products or solutions to really warrant having a seat at the board. And so what we do take a look at all of that stuff. We also take a look at what their like engagement or like their activity ratios look like. So how many seats do they have? How many are actively being used? Because if you're not using the products and solutions, it's really hard to provide that feedback on what could be made better. And so we look at that. We also don't look at this just from an account perspective and how they're using the tools. We also have a specific set of membership criteria about the person itself, because we want them to operate with candor. We want them to have neutral to positive sentiment about Atlassian. We understand that not everybody is going to be a raving fan about every single thing, but we want them to operate with that specific level of candor where they can provide that constructive criticism in a way that's going to benefit everybody and not in a way that's going to come across as kind of dismissing Atlassian or the way that we have handled something. So it's really balancing that art and science that we look at for membership criteria. And we lean on the account teams quite a lot to make sure that we get that personal intel, which is why sitting as part of the sales organization and having the relationship with the account executives is really, really important, because we get to know a little bit more than maybe just someone coming in out of left field that we haven't heard from that has a customer that may be a good fit.
Yeah, there was a question about rotating members
Yeah.
So how do you handle CAB members who are not ready to, quote unquote, graduate, but have turned out to not be a right fit, low engagement or not providing good feedback?
I'm really glad that you asked that question, because that is probably one of the toughest things to solve for. because all of our customers are special unicorns, and we never want anybody to be offended by the fact that we may need to relinquish their seat on the board because they have not been engaged. And so again, this comes down to our partnership with the account teams. So we flag to the account teams initially if their customer has not been engaged for a certain period of time. So we've instituted some engagement tracking mechanisms to understand, okay, where do we start to kind of raise those alarms internally first before we end up needing to do anything with the customer specifically. And then we kind of workshop that with the account team and understand, okay, is CAB the right fit for them still? Where are they in their journey? Although CAB is not a selling motion by any means, it is cyclical, their sales cycle. And so we do also need to be mindful about moving people around or giving them different opportunities, because we never want to, think of us making a decision as any sort of form of bribery. And so we consult with the account teams first, and then if the customer has not, attended after, say, a year or so at all, we say, hey, this has been a great forum to try to engage with you with. We've noticed that you haven't been attending. We're curious if you're still interested in staying involved, or here's XYZ that you could participate in instead that may have a little bit less of your bandwidth chewed up, but still provide that same type of value that you may be looking for in engaging with the Atlassian team. And so we never just want to boot someone and then not have a backup opportunity for them, but we do make sure that every circumstance is catered for in conjunction with the account team.
I like your approach on that. This is another membership related question. How do you respond to customers that indicate they want to join the CAB, however, are concerned about their competitors being on the CAB?
Yeah, so that's a great piece as well. So the executive CAB, we take, because it's a smaller group, it's 20 to 25 people, we take a very, very hard look in the mirror to understand what our industry representation looks like, because we do understand that maybe one of the drawbacks of having an industry specific CAB is that folks may not feel comfortable being completely open and honest during meetings if they know that their competition is. And so we do like to make sure that we've got some folks from, different parts of the industry where maybe it's not in direct competition with one another. And then we also do give our members a heads up for who is part of the board as well ahead of their first meeting, so they know and they are not walking into this blind for who else is going to be in the room. And we found that works really well to make sure that we're just taking a very tailored approach to building our membership roster and really trying to care for that diversity of thought and still like making sure that we've got folks that can collaborate with each other and speak to each other without divulging any secrets.
Yeah, I think that's key. I mean, we've helped manage CABs with like AT&T and Verizon, and the topics are not about, divulge your secrets. So in general, we honestly haven't had that as an issue in terms of competitors. Let me go through. There's so many questions here. I'm scrolling, so
I can put my LinkedIn in the chat as well. If
someone's saying, curious to how you handle potential mix of large customers and smaller to mid-size. We find that they have different needs and expectations, which can bifurcate discussions. Yeah, we would definitely say to have separate CABs. It just doesn't really work when they're not peers at the same level and experience.
Yeah, and that's some of the way that we manage that is through our nomination forms. So when we have a conversation with the account team and they think they have a customer that would be a good fit, we do ask them to fill out a nomination form. And some of that like science-based criteria is around like what sales segment they're a part of, what their annual recurring revenue is, what their total employee count is as well, because a person that's in charge of a 50,000 person organization versus someone that's in charge of a 2,000 person organization is going to have drastically different thoughts on scale, around performance and whatnot. And so we do like to make sure that there is a like-minded group of peers. So we still have that diversity of who's in the room from a personnel standpoint, but the company makeup we like to make sure is relatively consistent across the board so everybody benefits from the discussion.
Yeah, definitely. We have like 4 minutes left. So let me see if I can find one question, and then I'll ask you to wrap up with like your final comments. I'm looking for a good question too. This one's a pretty good question. Atlassian spans a lot of great products. Are all of your CAB members multi-product users? For example, Jira, Confluence, and Trello. When asking members to share feedback on your product solutions, how do you prioritize your products to ensure that the feedback is relevant to them as much as it is relevant to you, your roadmap and strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm thrilled that you know the Atlassian products as well. I hope that they provide a lot of benefit for you. What we do there is we take advantage of pre-reads. So no, not every customer is going to use every tool across the Atlassian stack. I think we've got like 16 or 17 clouds products just alone. That doesn't account for our data center products and then things of that nature. So we can't expect that everybody's going to be familiar with everything. About a week or two before the meeting, we do like to send a pre-read out to members, giving them an abstract about the sessions like that we'll be covering during the meeting. And then also any pre-read materials that will give them a little bit more of that foundational level education about maybe a product that they haven't, used before or something kind of to that nature, to give them that, education so they can jump into the meeting and they can still provide their feedback based on like parallel situations or experiences that they've had without needing to be an active user of it. What I will say is sometimes the fact that they are not a user of something, if we end up going and talking about it during a meeting, it's an indirect way that we're also helping to influence their expansion with Atlassian, because they are then interested in understanding how other people are using that product or solution. And then they want to take that back to their teams and say, hey, maybe we have a business case to bring this forward and this is how it could help us. And so it starts to kind of open some doors a little bit more organically that way too.
So let me see if there's another question here. We've got 2 minutes. I'm looking to see, there's so many questions. This is just a quick one. Do you pay for CAB members' travel for in-person meetings?
We do not cover their flights at this point, but we do coordinate and cover their ground transportation and their hotel accommodations. Flights are more on a case-by-case basis.
And then let's just wrap up with, what are your tips, or just like top few tips for anyone that wants to start a CAB, and where do you start? Strategic, executive level customers, product level. You have in a minute.
We have a minute
everyone for being here
and give me, yes, that's great. I would say more often than not, a lot of CAB programs focus on executive level customers. I think there is an itch from a lot of enterprise organizations to get higher into their customer accounts and to really pick the brains of those key decision makers across those large enterprise organizations. And so I would say if you're interested in standing up a CAB program, you absolutely should. It's my full-time job. I absolutely love what I do. I learn so much through the process, and more importantly, our executives learn a lot through this process as well. And so having executive sponsorship and really having that key person or 2 people or so to help you get this program off the ground is going to be really important. And their continued commitment and presence in each of the meetings is going to go a really long way in driving relationships and building those with customers. So then down the road, if there's a crisis that ends up happening, your executive sponsor for your CAB program could go and call a CAB alumni member and say, hey, we had a really great relationship. I'm really struggling with this. Can we talk about it? I'd love some more, feedback or some ideas from you. It's really all about building those customers for life. And the advisory board really it's a great investment to show that we want to co-create with our customers and build for that long term. So I would say it's a lot of work. It's a lot of really important work, and it's a lot of really rewarding work. So definitely get involved at the executive level and pitch your ideas on this. And I can't wait to see what happens.
Thanks so much, Amy. And we at Ignite, we would totally agree with your answer. Go ahead, start with that strategic executive level CAB. It's going to be a game changer when it's well run. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thanks for having me today.
Bye.
Bye.